Welcome to the Providers Report, where we delve into the world of value-based healthcare. Our mission is to empower healthcare providers with the knowledge and tools they need to deliver exceptional patient care. Each episode, we explore best practices, innovative strategies, and real-world examples of how to achieve the highest standards in patient communication and outcomes. Join us as we transform the future of healthcare, one conversation at a time.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of BDP. Today we are diving into a major social skill, having patience. Do we all have this skill? Can it vary? Where do we learn this? Can it be improved upon even? And why does it even matter as a healthcare provider? Well, we all know that taking care of patients in healthcare can be both an incredibly rewarding experience, but also sometimes a pretty grueling one, depending on what kind of personality you're dealing with. Sometimes situations require a certain level of patience in order to be effective, and it's really important to know what that is. We're going to touch on all of these things in today's episode with Ben Herbert, who is a personal trainer and a nutritional coach in the UK. All right. Hey, everybody. We are here today with Ben Herbert, and we're going to be talking about his background with personal training and being a nutritional coach and just everything that he has to deal with patients with his clients. So thank you so much for joining us, Ben, tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. So I'm looking forward to getting down and talking about all things patients, fitness, and health.
Absolutely. So first off, let's talk about your background. Tell us what you're doing professionally. Tell us kind of what your focus is, your ideal patient demographic, just everything that you're doing in the world of health.
So currently, I am working with busy professionals. That's my niche. I help busy professionals strip body fat and get into the best shape of their life. I'm a huge believer of when it comes down to losing fat, there doesn't need to be any food restrictions. So I make sure my clients are well fed. They can go out and party if they like, consume whatever they wish, as long as it's in line with, their goals and their true habits.
So have you found with that, that specific population of clients that you're working with, I mean, do you think that they require more patience than other clients, or, what's the difference there? Because you've got a pretty specific niche there.
When it comes to patience, I think not just for my niche, but, for all areas, patience is definitely going to be needed, even I imagine, in your role of job as well. But obviously we have personal trainers when they're working face to face, have a massive variation of client. So there'll be beginners, there'll be, a guy or a lady that's trained for, 20 odd years, but just wants that extra little bit of help. So patience is going to come on different levels. But I think when you start as a trainer, I don't think what I found out and what I've seen, when you come out of your, getting your qualification, you don't really understand what it's going to be truly like and how much time is required just going through, looking at key points in the moves, even just generally talking about nutrition, going over their nutrition. It can be quite tough for new trainers to have the patience because there are a lot of the same questions. Sure. But then again, depending what you're doing and depending your setup, I like to, in my business, have like a client lab. So they'll go into a certain area alongside where their programming and stuff is. And they have a learning manual. So there'll be videos of me talking about, things, anything looking at like protein, carbohydrates, fats, all things like that when it comes to nutrition. Literally simple facts of like soda and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Just so if they ever ask me a question, I can go to them, do you know what, let's save my time and your time and let's be super productive about this. Go into a learning area. It's already in there for you. So therefore they can learn. So when it comes to my patients, I have quite a bit because, I can send them to their learning lab and it's already there and it's already done. So they can learn straight away and then come back to me and everything the ball just keeps on rolling. But if you haven't got set up like that and, you are talking nutrition, you are talking exercise, and they can't get it, massive amount of patience is required. But But then again, a good book to look at. I'm a massive reader, so I like to look at things to do with like habits, mindset, and stuff like that. Which I believe going down that route is, it's just going to teach you a lot, so your patients will come with it. So a good book I would suggest, if you're looking at like patients and just looking at patients and habits and sort of your own behavior when it comes to teaching someone, would be Atomic Habits by James Clear. A massive, I've waffled on here, but yeah, it's
I've heard so many good things about that book.
Yeah, it's incredible. I'd honestly say it's the best book I've ever read.
Yeah, well, I think you bring up a lot of points that I honestly hadn't even considered before we started this interview. Obviously, not all patients are going to be the same. So, and our clients, so when they come in, someone might require more of your attention than somebody else, but, having that baseline of those pre-recorded videos, or just having like a go-to guide of how you do things at a basic level and being able to explain that to them and have that as a resource is huge. Because in any job within the healthcare industry, you're going to have certain processes at work that are automated, right? I mean, yes, everyone gets differentiated care, but there are some things that are going to be the same. When you're explaining fats to a client, you can show them a video. And then if they have more questions, you can dial in a little bit more. That makes perfect sense. And I feel like to save your time, the client's time, and then whatever extra time you do have together can be better spent, where you're going to end up having better outcomes with them as a person. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Like looking at your industry, for example, and you're helping with pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if someone comes to you with pain, you're not going to see them instantly, because you're busy yourself. So it's they might be booked in for 2 weeks down the line. It could be helpful, like, I don't know how you run things, but almost have enrolling them into a certain area that you've got that talks them through the specific pain that they might have, and how they can sort of measure their pain and deal with the pain until they sort of see you, even though pain some of it's unbearable. But I'm sure there are certain tactics you could produce that could, get them through that 2 weeks, for example. One, it's going to save your time instead of them being on the phone constantly.
Yeah.
And two, they can be super productive in that time whilst they're sort of learning the key points.
Well, that actually came into play pretty big with COVID last year when, offices were shut down or at a reduced capacity. We weren't having everybody come into the office. So people were reaching out to their chiropractors and their primary care physicians and their PTs saying, hey, I have this back pain. I don't feel comfortable coming in. What can you do for me? And so we had to give them resources and exercises and stretches. And, we had to coach them on their pain pathways but kind of better educate them on how to handle it until they did feel comfortable coming in to see us. So I think, it's just so important to have, basically, it's important to be able to modify, right? If you literally cannot modify what you're providing as a service, you're going to struggle. My husband and I were just talking about this earlier today. We were talking about how technically in the world of COVID, I actually think a lot of businesses upgraded. I think they were forced in a horrible environment to make changes within healthcare and with outside of healthcare. They were forced to make changes to better their companies so they could stay open and make money. And a lot of the things that these businesses have changed could have been things that they could have done without a pandemic that would have made them even better too. I think like fast food restaurants and even sit-down restaurants, they're operating better in some ways than they have ever. But again, they were kind of forced to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with the point of COVID sort of happened, and any sort of pandemic happens, and it almost makes you think, actually, I do need to up my game completely.
Right.
It's almost like some people good when they've got their back against the walls, and that it's either push or you collapse, right? So yeah, I massively agree. I think I personally like the challenge when your back gets put against the wall. It's like there's only one thing you can do.
Mm-hmm.
So it almost draws that that roadmap to sort of succeeding. It's like that's the only route you've got.
Yeah, I love it.
You either go hard at this or you're done.
Yeah, and you don't want to be done, I hope.
No, yeah, absolutely.
So, you also mentioned that your ability to kind of navigate patients with your clients changed a lot from the beginning of your career to where you are now. So how long have you been doing this? And can you kind of explain a little bit more about what you've learned during that time and how it's changed?
So I've been coaching clients for around 7 years now. Yeah, 7 years. Um, when I first got my qualification, you don't know what you're going to go into, right? It's literally you just learn on the job. As nice as they make it sound like you're going to learn this, you're going to learn that.
Yeah.
It's like going to like school. I never got taught about like paying taxes and dealing with bills and stuff like that. You just go out into the real world and you just deal with it, right? So like come out of get my qualification, and it's a bit like, wow, okay, I'm being thrown all these sorts of things, like absolute like curveballs. It's like someone's got like weak hamstrings, like, okay, weak hamstrings, but they've also got another issue. And it's like, okay, wow, I'm going to have to be super patient. And I feel like I've got that background because I played golf as a sport since I was probably about 6. And if you've ever played golf, it's the most frustrating sport in the world.
That's what I've heard.
So it's like you build up patience through there, and I felt like it rolled quite well into my job, just because I've understood how to build up the patience, how to deal with frustrations. And it's frustrating seeing a client being like left in such a bad way from either, I don't know, past experience in the gym, not training him or herself properly, or going through a trainer that didn't really know what they're doing, or it could be going to a class where there's like 30 people and you can't have all eyes on 30 people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went into it with quite good patience, but as my time's gone on, you obviously learn your trade more. You obviously become a lot smarter with the time you're investing in learning and stuff like that. And just, I'd say, reading over the years, it's just, as silly as it sounds, some of the stuff I read isn't to do with my job. It's like just everyday sort of reading, and it's like I don't know, it's just sort of growing up, isn't it? I'd say.
Yeah, I think you can learn a lot of social skills from a lot of the books that are out there in today's world too.
Yeah,
you better understand people and situations and how to handle them.
Yeah, definitely. I imagine if you look back, however long you've been doing chiropractic for, like if you look back when you first started to where you are now,
Oh my
I
gosh.
imagine a lot of things have improved.
Yeah, and I think for me, so I'm going on my 4th year right now, and I think one of the biggest things too is my ability to predict outcomes has gotten so much better just based on experience. So like I can predict when something's going to go really well. I can predict when somebody's going to need something extra to avoid a bad situation. I feel like I can read people differently based on like previous experiences that I've had. I can tell a lot quicker now when somebody has a psychosocial component to their pain. I can tell just in general what it's going to take on my end to get them better, even outside of a treatment perspective, from a social perspective even. So you mentioned obviously the client directly, and I want to touch on, can you give us a couple examples, maybe something that's happened to you or maybe a colleague of yours? Can you give us an example of like a client personal training experience that went south, like it went poorly because there was a lack of patience involved? And then can you give us an example on the flip side of one that was saved because the personal trainer had that patience, they were calm, they were collected, and they were able to blast through a difficult situation?
So I'll use scenarios for myself because I don't think it'd be fair for me to mention a few stories I've seen.
Understandable.
So when things went south and not too great is most probably my first year into it. Don't get me wrong, it didn't go terribly, but I picked up this new client. I'd literally been in the gym self-employed in the gym for most probably about 10 days. Picked up this client, really nice lady, but she was the sort of person that, as bad as it sounds, and I'll be completely honest because that's who I am, is that she used to turn up late to her sessions all the time. Didn't respect any sort of time. You'd be like, right, we need to work on X, Y, and Z because in your free time when you come to the gym, just because you're struggling in those areas, and it's going to sort of fast track you so we can make some serious progress. But obviously we're going to need to work on it in our sessions as well. Anyway, I'd say a month down the line, you can just see the sort of person, and she wasn't working on it the sort of outside of our sessions. So I literally pulled her aside. I was like, okay, like face to face now, like, have you really been working on this? Me being young back then, I went, right, let's not bullshit me. Like, have you been doing your stuff? And, and she goes, no, I haven't. I was like, well, fair enough for admitting you haven't, but, you're wasting my time and you're wasting your time. What do you think's best? Now, looking back, my patience, I could have kept my patience just a little bit more and said, like, how could we increase you performing these moves outside the gym? But I didn't even go down that route. I just lost patience really quickly. But lucky enough, she's still with me today, and she's actually improved.
Oh, that's so great. And well, I'm sure she's probably seen the growth in you too, as a personal trainer.
Yeah, we joke about it now because, she's jumped to my online stuff. And so I don't actually see her anymore, but on Zooms like this, when we catch up and stuff, we joke around with it. If she hasn't done something in a certain week that we've needed to do, I'll sort of bring the joke back up. So it's all good.
I love it.
And my next one would be things going well. I'd actually say today I had a coaching call with a lady that lives in Iowa today, one of my online clients, and she's gone through the process of losing the weight she's wanted to lose, got that great transformation, and we're now sort of on the process of, right, let's get nice and strong, let's build some muscle, not just for now, but for the future, for when you become older, bone health and all that sort of good stuff. And she had a few off days, just with COVID and stuff like that, not being easy on her mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually become a very good listener when clients talk, and I literally just sort of shut up and listen for about 45 minutes of what she said. And it was like, even though it's not could be a sign of patience, but that's I think that's what I've improved. Just sitting here, and if you wanted to chat to me, I'd sit here in pure silence and just let you vent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what she needs to do, because she come off the call like a completely different person.
Oh, that's so good. She needed that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then she messaged me off saying, I can't believe I actually really needed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't feel like she needed to, because I said, we can jump on a call earlier in the week if you need to. She's like, no, I'll be fine. I'll get through it, sort of thing. And yeah, she just went off on one. That it was fine. It was absolutely fine, because that's what she required, and that's what I was there for. But yeah, I'd say that was one of my best ones.
I love it.
At the aspect of, it wasn't just fitness, it wasn't nutrition, it was more mental.
Yeah,
being able to shift that sort of mindset into allowing her to enjoy her weekend now.
Well, and I know one of the biggest pieces of advice I think I had during my training was recognizing that no matter what you're doing within the world of healthcare, these are real people. Their mind is involved. Yes, you're focusing on their body in that moment, but their mind is involved. They're real people with real problems. And there's going to come a day where it might be outside of your scope. It might be outside of what your duties are as a personal trainer, a chiropractor, a PCP, anything, but you might just have to be there for that person someday. And I realize this the most with my elderly patients. I have some patients that come in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. And yes, they're there because they want me to help their back pain, but I might be the only in-person person that they speak to for that week. And so they might want to talk to me about their granddaughter. They might want to talk to me about what they did 2 weeks ago with a family member, and that's okay. And I think it requires patience to be able to realize, okay, I don't need to talk about your family today, but you need me to, and I care about you. So, by default, it really pays off. I think there are a lot of healthcare providers out there who maybe they know that it's a personality trait of themselves, that they've never been patient people in general, both with their job and outside of their job. If any of our listeners are that kind of person and know that they're that kind of person, what resources would you recommend that they start? I mean, obviously we're going to be recommending Atomic Habits because that book is incredible. But what else do you think some of our listeners could do who really want to kind of take that next step and go up a level in terms of their listening skills and their patience with their clients or their patients themselves?
A few simple ones. I'd say self-reflect to start with. Understand why you're that sort of person. Understand why it's going on, and don't, like I imagine they'd say to their clients, like trying to find what's going on and why things are going wrong and why other things are going well. You have to go to the root cause. You can't just float around the top. So getting pen and paper, as silly as it sounds,
I love it.
The advice the advice you'd give to someone is like, you always want to find the root cause, because if the root cause isn't sorted, then nothing actually really gets sorted in long term.
Mm-hmm.
So an honest reflection, have a good look in the mirror, sit down, pen, paper, and reflect why you feel like you don't have the patience. Again, I'd question why you're in this sort of industry if you haven't got patience.
Right. Yeah.
I'd also say, once you've had that sort of self-reflection, there's one thing I'm a huge believer in, and it's, investing in your own learning. I wouldn't say where to go exactly for it, because there are so many good options. You could go books, you could go mentors, you could go, virtual events. Obviously, with COVID happening, you could go to actual face-to-face events, once it's all lifted. But the number one would be pen and paper, and really have a really good word with yourself and understand where it's coming from, why, and how can you fix it.
And that's something on BDP we talk about a lot on our podcast too. We want to give our best to patients, but if we're not in the best position personally, like that's going to come out in what we do on a daily basis at our job. It's simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really good point. Personal reflection and taking a step back saying, hey, if I want to be better here, I have to be better at home. I have to be better in my personal life. I have to make sure I'm in a good place so I can deliver the best care possible to my patients and clients.
A thing I'm a massive fan of, I do it daily, weekly, and monthly. I'll do like a daily debrief,
Mm-hmm.
sort of assess how I've been, what I've actually got done in my day. If it's really reflected of what I want to achieve. If it hasn't, it's been like, okay, now let's figure out why it hasn't,
Mm-hmm.
and then go again tomorrow. And then at the end of the week, Sunday, like tomorrow, I'll sit down and I'll go through a deep sort of plan of action of what I'm going to attack next week, how I'm going to attack it, and in the sense of mark myself out of 10 of certain areas, how I've been, have I got my content out, have I put as much time in with my clients as I did the previous week, stuff like that. Really, really self-assess. And then if I see something I'm not happy with, I then go deeper into that sort of moment and understand why, and then it's sort of laid out in front of you, and you just have to take action on it.
Well, it gives you a sense of purpose and focus for the week ahead too, which I think is awesome. I've always been a firm believer of start every week with a goal in mind. Start every week with something you can be better. Like if you literally think you go to work on a Monday and there's nothing you can improve, I hate to break it to you, but you're missing something. You can be doing so well professionally, personally, but there's always something that can be better. And I can't imagine a world where we're not looking to be better every single day. So I love it.
I think it's good that we live in a world that no one's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a huge believer in that it's there's a reason behind why no one's perfect, and that is, I believe that is perfect, that everything's not perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it.
Because otherwise we wouldn't face these challenges. We wouldn't grow as a person. You'd just be just like a plain Jane.
It would be extremely boring.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I love it. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and talking to us about this. You were absolutely incredible. And I hope our listeners can learn a ton about how to be better listeners with their patients and clients, and to just have better patient skills in general. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Ben.
Thank you for having me on, and good luck with your new daughter arriving.
Thank you so much. I hope all of you are going to read Atomic Habits now if you haven't already. Don't worry, it'll be linked in our show notes. And I really hope this episode inspired you to really take the start of your week and view it as an opportunity to improve skills that will directly contribute to better patient care and experience. And patience is absolutely one of those skills. For more about Ben Herbert, check out his Instagram at Ben Herbert, HERBERT PT. Once again, that is at Ben Herbert PT. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to the Providers Report. We hope you found today's episode valuable and inspiring. To stay updated with our latest episodes, subscribe to our podcast wherever you like to listen. For more resources and continuing education opportunities, visit our website. Together, we can make a difference in the lives of our patients and truly set a standard for value-based healthcare.